Her parents sold her because she was barren. Her value, they said, was less than half the price of a steer. And so, in the dusty heart of a market square, under the whispers of strangers and the stench of manure, Mabel stood, bruised, humiliated, and alone. Her father shoved her forward like unwanted cargo, offering her to the highest bidder, his voice sharp with bitterness. She was 22, still had her teeth, still capable of cooking, sewing, and keeping quiet. But to them, she was broken. Her barren womb had sealed her fate. Memories burned her skin, her wedding dress torn, her husband's cold dismissal, the new wife with her smug smile and empty promises. Mabel had prayed, tried every bitter herb, begged for a miracle that never came, and for that, she was discarded like spoiled goods. Then came Silas, tall, broad, wearing the scent of pine and sawdust. He said nothing, only placed a leather pouch of coins on the table. No bartering, no cruelty, just tired eyes and steady hands. "She won't be judged any more," was all he said before turning away. Mabel, heart-pounding, followed him. Was this mercy or another form of captivity? At his cabin, nestled among pines, she met his 4 children, red-cheeked, cautious, wild as pups. The house was worn, but not unkind. Silas gave her space. He never asked what she could not give, only offered what little comfort he had. In the weeks that followed, Mabel moved carefully, her heart tender, her hands uncertain. She cooked, she sewed, she taught the children letters. When she spilled the stew one afternoon and braced for anger, Silas only said, "It's just stew." And something deep inside her, long frozen, began to thaw. One stormy night, when little Hannah burned with fever, it was Mabel who stayed up, who brewed herbs, who cooled the child's brow until the danger passed. At dawn, Silas left her tea and a note with 2 words, "Thank you." No name, no demand, just quiet gratitude. Spring softened the land. Mabel, once tossed aside, found herself teaching, singing, stitching scars for children who now called her Miss May. But shadows still lingered. In town, she faced the sneers of her past, her former mother-in-law and the new wife with their sharp tongues and cruel laughter. Silas, steady as ever, silenced them not with fists, but with quiet truth. "She is the heart of our home." Her ex-husband, broken and hollow, later begged for her return. But Mabel, her voice strong at last, refused. She had found something rarer than pity or empty promises. She had found worth not tied to her womb, but to her hands, her kindness, her resilience. And when danger came again, when Jed, drunk and leering, cornered her at the well, it was Silas who struck without hesitation, who wrapped her wrist in his kerchief and said, "No one touches you, not unless I say." His words were not of possession, but of protection, of respect. For the first time in her life, Mabel was more than her scars. She was seen, she was safe, and she was free to choose her own happiness. Bleeding, he shook his head. "Damn fool," he muttered, more to himself than to her. Back inside, Mabel gently washed his bruised knuckles. She used boiled water and a clean scrap of muslin. The room around them was silent, but it was thick with something unspoken, a tension that neither dared name. "You didn't have to," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. "He would have left." Silas looked at her, his eyes softening in a way she had rarely seen. "He shouldn't have grabbed you," he said quietly. She dabbed at the blood with careful fingers. "Still, you don't even like fighting." "I like less seeing someone hurt you," he murmured. Her breath caught, her eyes filling with something too complex for words. "I cried," she admitted in a shaky voice, "but not because I was scared, because no one's ever stood up for me like that." He said nothing, just looked at her as if she was something delicate but not breakable, something worth defending. When she finished, she sat back. He flexed his fingers slowly, wincing. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely audible. Silas shrugged. "I reckon I don't want to live in a world where men like him think they can talk to you that way." She smiled then, small but genuine. Her wrist still ached, but her heart, for the first time in years, felt held. Outside, the stars stretched sharp and brilliant across the dark sky. Inside, a man who never raised his voice had finally raised his hand for her. And she, a woman long told she was too small to matter, had been shielded like something precious. It wasn't love yet, but it was the shape love might take. The morning was lined with frost, the kind that clung to fence posts and made every breath visible. Mabel was kneading dough in the kitchen when a sharp, piercing scream rang out across the yard, unmistakably one of the children. The bowl dropped from her hands, flour exploding like snow, and she ran barefoot across the cold, packed dirt. Silas's youngest boy, Caleb, was crumpled near the woodpile, his leg twisted unnaturally beneath him, the axe lying nearby, its blade streaked with red. "Oh God," Mabel whispered, dropping to her knees. Silas was already there, his face tight, hands steady as he lifted the child. "Boil water," he said, calmly but urgently. "Get the bandages." Her heart thundered as she ran, her hands clumsy in haste. When she returned, Caleb lay on the kitchen table, pants cut open at the thigh. Blood welled from a ragged gash. Mabel's hands trembled as she pressed the cloth to the wound. Caleb cried out, face pale. "I know, baby," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I know it hurts. Just hold on." Her tears fell freely as she worked, smearing red, wrapping, tying. She prayed with every knot, every whisper. Then, through clenched teeth, came a tiny voice. "Don't cry, Mama." She froze. The word hung in the air. "Mama?" Caleb repeated, blinking up at her. She cupped his cheek, her hand trembling harder now, but for a different reason. Later, when the boy rested, his leg bandaged and elevated, the other children gathered. One brought her a blanket. Another offered a carved toy horse. "Papa says you're staying," said one solemn girl. "Does that mean you're our mama now?" Mabel couldn't find the words. She just nodded, and it was enough. From that night on, they called her Mama without prompting, without ceremony, just real, a name born of love, not blood. Silas watched it all in silence. He saw how she held their hands when the night frightened them, how she braided their hair, how her eyes softened when they whispered her name. That night, after the house fell quiet, Silas found her sitting alone under the stars. He stood for a long time before speaking. "I ain't ever been a good talker, you know that." She looked up. "You say enough." He nodded slowly. "When I put money down at the market, I thought I was giving you a way out. I never thought I had the right to keep you." Mabel's heart pounded. "I thought you'd leave once you had your footing," he continued. "And if that's what you want, I won't stop you. I won't hold you to what started as a sale." Her whole body trembled, not from fear, but from something deeper. "I used to think love meant being chosen at first sight," she whispered. "But I've learned something better, being chosen again, after people see who you really are." Silas's jaw tightened. If you're not sending me away," she added softly, stepping toward him, "then I'm not going." She took his calloused hand. "I may not have made these children," she said, voice steady, "but they made me something I thought I'd never be. And you let me be that without asking for anything back." He looked at her, not with desire or guilt, but with awe, as if she had rescued him. "I just wanted you safe," he murmured. "And now I want more than safe," she replied. He pulled her into his arms, not as a man claiming something, but as someone who knew what it meant to be given a second chance. Inside, the fire glowed low. Outside, frost crept over the land, and in between them, something new was born, not built on blood, but on belonging. The sun rose golden as Mabel walked hand in hand with the oldest boy to the schoolhouse. His fingers clutched hers tightly, his reader book hugged to his chest. When the teacher asked his mother's name, the boy looked up and said clearly, "Mabel Silas." Mabel's heart caught. The name had not been given by law or man, but by the unguarded truth of a child's love. Later, Silas placed a small leather notebook beside her. "I ain't got much," he said, "but I figure if anyone deserves a fresh page, it's you." Her fingers trembled as she touched the first page. "I used to dream of starting over," she said softly, "but I never thought I'd get to write the story myself." And slowly she wrote, "Today is the first day I was loved without having to give birth to anyone." Silas gently pressed his forehead to hers. "Thank you," he whispered, "for staying long enough for us to love you." And in that quiet, fire-warmed room, the woman once sold for less than a cow was reborn, not through law or marriage, but through something real. But then the drought came. Weeks without rain turned the soil to dust, crops withered, Silas grew gaunt, his strength fading. Yet Mabel refused to surrender. Each day she dug, watered, sang to the dead garden. Each night she nursed Silas's fever with stories and soup and the sheer refusal to let hope die. And when he whispered, "Don't leave me, not you too," she pressed her lips to his brow and promised, "I'm not going anywhere." One green shoot pushed through the dirt, then another, then one small stubborn tomato that fed 6 hungry mouths and filled a barren house with laughter. Years passed. The garden grew wild, unruly, alive. Government men came offering money for the land, but Silas stood firm. "No, this land is not for sale." A handmade sign, hammered at the roadside, read simply, "Not for sale." Life went on. Children married, grandchildren ran through the fields. The house echoed with bread baking, footsteps, laughter. And always the garden thrived. Beans, corn, sunflowers taller than any child. One autumn afternoon, a grandson asked, "Grandpa, why don't you call it just Mabel's garden?" Silas smiled gently, pointing to the wooden arch where he had carved, "She did not bear my blood, but she gave birth to the rest of my life." When Mabel passed, she was buried under the same tree where she had once hung wind chimes. Silas joined her years later, and still the garden grew. And when travelers passed the old gate, they read the sign, "Not for sale," because some hills bloom only for those who choose love over ease. And some stories, like Mabel's, take root forever.